Welcome, everyone. I'm Rebecca Snyder with MDDC Press Association. We are here today for one of our final sessions of Into the Newsroom for the next generation of journalism. So with that, Larry Nagengast, our host from the Delaware Community Foundation, will introduce our panelists and start the conversation. Larry?
Thank you, Rebecca. I guess it's been one of those things where every time I talk to an aspiring journalist, and people, actually young people in just about any profession, tell them you not only have to be prepared for the job that you're doing now, but for what you're going to be doing 10 years from now, and we really don't know what that's going to be. So I thought it was a good idea for wrapping up this summer's session of seminars to talk about the future and get some perspectives. Quickly introducing our panelists. First of all, Tim Furlong is the Delaware Bureau reporter for NBC 10 in Philadelphia. And he's kind of a one-man newsroom in Delaware. He joined NBC 10 in 2005. He's a two-time Mid-Atlantic Emmy Award winner and part of a team that won the Edward R. Murrow Award. Also works as an adjunct communications professor at Widener University. Nancy Karabjanian, director of the University of Delaware Center for Political Communication, which also includes administering the journalism minor at the university. She's well known for her time with WHYY, which included anchoring, reporting, monitoring, and producing, and news staff management. She's also a key member of the core group of journalists who founded Delaware Public Media and launched Delaware's first native NPR station, WDDE. And third panelist, John Massoni, Assistant Vice President of News Operations at WHYY. He came to WHYY as managing editor of its Wilmington newsroom. He's produced the TV news magazine First. He was also involved in coverage of the 2015 visit of Pope Francis to Philadelphia and the 2016 Democratic National Convention. And he's currently participating in the planning to create a collaborative solutions journalism initiative in Delaware. So I think the three of them are going to give us some different perspectives on what lies ahead for journalism. Tim, I'll let you go first. It seems to me as though I'm not sure whether this one-man newsroom operation that you seem to have here in Delaware makes you a throwback or makes you the look of the future. But go ahead and tell me where you see things going.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, no, you know what? It's kind of both, because when I started out in reporting in the late, I was an intern with Nancy. She doesn't want me to tell that. I was an intern with high school at Salesianum, but she hasn't aged and I have, which is crazy. When I went to Charlottesville, Virginia for my first on-air job, I had to carry a camera around, and I thought, well, one day I'm not going to have to do this, and that's how it always was. You get to a big market and you have photographers. It kind of is that way in a lot of ways, but I think more markets will have you do it longer. And then when you get to a big market, some people in Philly don't do it. Most people don't do the one-man band thing in this big market, but they asked me if I would be willing to shoot sometimes to be the Delaware Bureau. And I said, yeah, sure, because it was a better schedule, it was a better situation. It started out where I would shoot maybe 5% of my own video. Now I shoot 99.99999% of my own video. I edit 100% of my video, and every word that comes out of my mouth on television was written by me. That's it. Nobody writes for me, nobody does anything. And I, on a daily basis, like, we keep track of these things at Channel 10. By myself, I create more content than any other two-person crew we have at the station in terms of quantity. That's a fact. I mean, you can look, there's statistics that we have. I turn more stories. When I'm done here, I'm going to be racing down to Smyrna to pick up a story. I shot a story yesterday that needs to get edited today. I have stuff in the tomorrow. I have to go to the Eagles game. I'm going to be live outside the Eagles game. So I do everything. The other way it's changed, and it's gotten kind of better, is the equipment that you use. First of all, I'm coming to you live. Like, it looks like I'm in some sort of control room. I'm in a Jeep Wrangler. This is my rolling news bureau. It's kind of a pain, but I would take it outside. I could show you the Jeep that I'm in. I'm in a Jeep Wrangler. I'm in the back seat. It's a 2-seat Jeep Wrangler. We can feed live from here. It has cameras all over it that we can, drive and go live at the same time. I always carry with me 2 GoPros. GoPros are amazing for storytelling and content creation. I have a tackle box full of mounts in the back, and I can put them on anything. If I need to cover a race, I can do that. If I need to show something underwater, I put it on a selfie stick and splash it underwater. I shoot everything that I shoot. I just got nominated for the best photographer in Philly, which I think ticks off a lot of the real photographers and full-time photographers. Everything that I shoot on this. This is it. This is my camera. This is $500 at Best Buy. It's a little steady camera. It will always stay flat and steady. This is the best thing you could ever buy. I highly recommend everybody goes out and buys themselves one. It comes with a little wireless mic that clips onto your shirt. And it's $500 for a production kit in a box this big. Best thing you'll ever buy. Shoots 4K. I'm in Colorado on vacation. Visit Boulder. The tourism agency saw my video. They called me and said, "We'd love to buy your video." Yeah, no problem. You get all yours. So I got a check in the mail. I'm a licensed drone pilot. I carry a little drone everywhere I go. And I'm licensed and I know how to use it and where I can fly it. I will say this, being a one-man band makes you way more valuable. So it seems like more work, and it is work than not being a one-person band, but it makes you more valuable, more marketable. You have to be a Swiss Army knife. For me, I pride myself on how much I give them every day and how good it is and the quality. So it's quantity and quality. But if you can do a lot of different things and keep expanding your skill set, I was for a long time the only licensed pilot, a drone pilot at Channel 10. You get yourself to the point where they can't live without you. And to me, the number one thing to go back to this whole focus is I'm a storyteller. That's what I do. I'm content creator. YouTubers, I like YouTubers too. I'm too old to really appreciate. I think I'm too old to supposed to like YouTubers, but I do. I learn a lot from them. And as a college professor, I learn a lot from my students in terms of how they watch, what they watch, where are they getting their content and how can I get my stuff there? So it's really the future of journalism is fishing where the fish are, knowing your audience, getting them the product that is best suited for their needs. If it's an Instagram post, TikTok, or whatever the future is, my Twitter audience is very different than my Facebook audience. My Instagram is different than my Twitter. So it's kind of tailoring the message for everybody. And then ultimately also making sure it looks good on Channel 10, which, by the way, you can say all you want, but Channel 10 is still at Channel 10. We have all the social media, we have everything. We have Peacock, we have all these different platforms. We have newscasts that only air on Roku and Apple TV. TV is still king. TV is still where the money is made, but it's changing. And one final thing too, we own a Telemundo station. So I am not fluent in Spanish, but I sure try hard to be. Whenever I go anywhere, if I see somebody and I say, "Hey, you don't speak Spanish by chance, do you?" "Oh yeah, sure I do." "All right, I'm going to interview in Spanish too," because I give it to our Telemundo team. So it's just a constant, all day long flow of shooting and editing and feeding back that content to make sure it gets to the right people as quickly as possible and it looks really damn good.
Good summary there, Jim. Great job. Let me swing over here to Nancy. And Nancy, in your role in looking at this minor in journalism at UD and that whole program, you certainly have to look at the future and what sort of academic preparation the next generation of journalists have, and you've got a lot of background to pull on as well. Where do you see things heading? And I know you mentioned this business about being able to discern what's true and what isn't. So go ahead. Unmute, Nancy.
For me, the biggest question is what kind of journalist does a young person want to become? I spent my entire career in a mission-driven newsrooms, and the purpose of that newsroom was to bring news that otherwise wasn't being told to a community. And I took a lot of pride in that. And I think that's what Delaware Public Media is doing as well. And I think that's what fuels Tim to produce so darn much content all the time. And by the way, it's great to see Johnny. I wish you were having video because I'd love to see your face. And if John is still here, it's great that we're getting access to records, but I don't know if you're aware that Delaware is one of the few states that does not have a Student Press Freedom Act. And we should have that. We should definitely have that. There's an attrition of journalism in schools, and I think that's part of the reason, because there's a confusion as to what a student journalism newsroom would look like. But, you know, with all this that happened over the last 4 years, the other half of my life in politics, the concept of fake news and mistrust and the attrition in local news is just frightening to me. But I don't see it changing the career possibilities for young journalists. More of my students have been hired into jobs in the last 6 years than ever before. And I've been teaching since 2003. I used to be in the newsroom and teach at the same time. And it wasn't good because I was a little scary because I was always on deadline. So I was talking like that in the classroom. But the reality is that they're cheap hires. And that's you know, an economic fact. So they're looking to the young people to come in because you can work for very little, you know, certainly not with somebody with a tenure that I have or that John has or Tim has. You know, we would require a higher salary base. But if they get in there and they're the right kind of journalist, they can make a big difference. I disagree that we should be tailoring news to TikTok because it's going to change in another 3 weeks. And until you pay a water bill and a sewer bill, you're not a true news consumer. You know, that's when things matter to you. When you're 18, 19 years old, you can read news and read your headlines on your phone, but it hits home once you are a contributing, tax-paying member of society. And you know, that's been documented. So this constant shift to say we've got to bring in the young people ignores the fact that that's what has been the problem all along. Think about what broadcast news looks like. 2 people on a set, a man and a woman, and I'm going to state my position here. As soon as the men start wearing muscle shirts on the air, then women can continue to wear the sleeveless, jewel-toned Spanx dresses. But as long as men can dress conservatively like a human, women should be allowed to do the same. I fought so hard to be a woman in this industry at the beginning of my career in the 80s. And to see women just become cocktail waitresses on the air is killing me. I'm like, you're demeaning your intelligence. You have something to bring to that set. So that's just my side thing. But how the future of news is going to impact your future is think about how newspapers were slow to the game to change. NBC 10, being a huge market, is already on the forefront of changing with the times, but nobody else really is. I mean, it's the majority of stations are becoming gobbled up by conglomerates or, God forbid, being produced out of house and regional news. And regional news is nobody's news. Everybody wants to know what's happening in their backyard. The pandemic taught us lessons, but what I've seen happen is now that some restrictions have eased, it's all pretty much started to go back to where it was before. And we're forgetting that it's the backyard news that matters. People want to know, how is this important in my life and how can it inform me to make my life better? So for me, I think that the young journalist has to say, what kind of journalist do I want to become? Do I want to be a journalist who merely, you know, is on air or getting a byline? Or do I want to be a journalist like Tim, who is scrapping local stories every day, going from Smyrna to Wilmington, Wilmington to where else did you say you were going today? I mean, I remember those days in my life, and they were very rewarding. And remember the mission. And as Johnny knows from having been in my classes, you know, it's always got to be fact-based, sourced journalism. Fake news doesn't exist. You know, the National Enquirer's been around forever. There'll always be aliens born in some farm in Iowa to a woman who has 11 other children. But there will also always be legitimate news. And so that's why I wanted to share my screen, because I think if you're going to embody the mission-driven journalist, what we're seeing from the New York Times, when the journalism industry finally said, we need to stick up for ourselves, because they kept thinking, we're doing our job, the public will understand it. And no, the public didn't. They are buying in to the mainstream media critiques instead of honoring the legacy of journalism and the the First Amendment rights of what we have in a free society. So I just want to share this because this hits me every time. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I actually have a Truth is Essential poster hanging in my office, because the first time I saw that, I stood up and I almost wanted to take the pledge of a bona fide journalist because it gave me such pride. So that's really my message, is that as the industry changes with the times, which it clearly will, just make sure that you are honoring the truth and honoring what it means to be a journalist in a free society.
Thank you, Nancy. Moving over to John, and one of the changes that's in the works now and may have some promise is this concept of collaborative journalism. And there have been several successful journalism collaboratives where all types of media outlets in a community, in a city or state, work together to address broad, significant issues in the community. There's a project underway in Delaware to try to create a solutions journalism collaborative here. It's in the very early stages. John's familiar with that, and John has also worked on the collaborative effort in Philadelphia. So I think that, this is an example of where journalism might be going, that all of the media outlets are going to have to work together, or see the importance of working together more than they have in the past, as opposed to being intensely competitive in getting their stories. John, go ahead, fill us in on what you can tell us about collaborative journalism and why we're maybe headed in that direction.
Well, we'll see. And good morning, everybody. And I want to start since I think I can finally say that I've achieved the status of the oldest guy in the room.
No.
I want to give you a little perspective of where we've been, because I think that knowing where we've been will sort of give us a clue as to where we're going. And I have a story from the 80s when Channel 10 and Channel 6 used to be across the street from each other on City Line Avenue in Philadelphia. And if you know anything about Philadelphia television, it's the fact that that the greatest rivalry in broadcast news is between Channel 10 and Channel 6. So two parts to this. One was when Channel 6 went to a 5 o'clock news. They'd only done news from 5:30 to 6 and 6 to 6:30. And Channel 10 had been doing news from 5 to 6:30 for a long time. So Channel 10 management sent Channel 6 a bouquet of flowers to congratulate them on finally understanding that there was a need to expand news. Channel 6 came out to the middle of City Line Avenue and threw the flowers in the street to be run over by traffic, just to say, hey, you know what? You don't own this turf. The second story, as news in the 80s started to expand, and you know, we had a situation where you know, we were hiring so many people at Channel 10, where I worked, that we needed to go to a bigger space. So we went into the front of the building, and this is true. People believed that Channel 6, because you could actually look into the front of the building and our assignment board, that the Channel 6 employees were taking, were spying on our assignment board. So they would actually move cabinets in front of this window, which was great, because it's like, yes, we're going to move to where there's more light, but yet we're living in the darkness because of some petty feud between two entities of journalism. So, you know, I tell you that in that we've evolved a long ways from there to the point where, you know, we now understand that there is a need, that that there is strength in numbers, and you know, this collaboration that Larry referred to really kind of picks up on a lot of themes that we've been doing in journalism for a long time, but we never really called it anything. And I think, you know, Nancy's point about you know, looking for stories that affect your community, I think that's what this collaboration that in Philadelphia is called Broken Philly, which I know sounds like an ominous name, but the truth is they are looking for solutions to problems in a way that we haven't recognized it before. And I think that, you know, for as much as people certainly get the majority of their news from television, it is kind of a fractured audience, to a point where there are 27 components, there are 27 members that make up this Broken Philly collaborative. And what they're doing is they're really looking for stories that affect their community, and doing it in a way that if we share the same information, we have a greater chance of reaching more and more people. And so, you know, part of their main projects are things on gun violence. They did a lot on COVID last year in terms of getting information out and trying to, you know, get people connected with vaccines when that started. You know, and again, it really kind of goes back to, you know, if you, not that everyone remembers the Delaware Tonight days, but, you know, there were always conversations trying to get different groups of people together to talk to each other in a way that we could come up with solutions. And if the main part of journalism is to find a solution to a problem, then that's what this is about. And we are hoping to expand it to Delaware. And you know, I will say that, you know, in this as a start of this, you know, the fact that somebody like Johnny is in the room today, he is a part of a collaboration. There were a group of people put together by the Delaware Community Foundation to say, hey, we think that that expanding an intern program that can serve a number of media outlets is a great way to get more inclusion into journalism and to make sure that people are served by expanding that journalism base. And so, you know, Johnny, congratulations. I think you've had a great internship. I hope you've enjoyed your part of working with the legacy of WHYY, and I want to thank you for that. So, you know, I think that collaboration is in our DNA. We always kind of look for ways to make sure that we can tell the story that best connects to our community. And I think that's really where we're headed. You know, the costs are going up. You know, we used to sort of pretend that news was just kind of an added value, but really, in this day and age, you know, with the cost of things, even the low cost equipment that Tim uses, like it's money. A microphone costs money, and you know, and it's just something that we all have to recognize. And I think the fact that we are recognizing it means that that we can sort of put the pettiness of of trying to beat each other to the same story, and kind of look for that bigger story that's gonna reflect to our audience is really kind of the way that we're going.
John, if I could just chime in, I think people have to understand too that we're competitive, but it's sort of friendly competition. Back in the 80s, John probably knows this. There's a video out there, and it was long before I was at Channel 10. I think it was early 80s. Channel 6 crashed. It had like an accident. It caught fire right outside of Channel 10, and everybody from Channel 10 went out. And there's video from Channel 6's outdoor weather camera of all the Channel 10 people waving behind the fire before the firefighters got there. Nobody was hurt. It was all in good fun. But it is we're friendly competitors. Some of my best friends in this business are reporters at other stations. Like when I travel for a story, I'll have dinner with Dan Cuellar from Channel 6. I like a lot of these people. Channel 6 has a couple people that work. They don't have a reporter in Delaware anymore, but they have a producer and a photographer. They'll call me all the time, be like, "Hey, did you get to this thing? Is it worth going to?" And I'll be like, "It was not as good as they said it was going to be." We talk all the time. It's very, very friendly, and it's not like there's this idea from I think the movie Anchorman is where everybody gets this idea that we all hate each other and we're going to have a street fight. It's not like that at all. I like these people, like they're my friends, and we all are sort of doing the same kind of thing. If I have a chance to get that piece of information that will make my story stand out, you're damn right I'm going to get it. And if I have a way that my story is going to look better, that's not a question. My story is going to look better than yours today, because that's that I have every day.
And actually,
do it better than you.
To that point, Tim, that actually was the beginning of collaboration. We didn't call it collaboration, but honest, this is the truth. When if somebody's camera didn't or failed in the field, there was always this behind the scenes thing where either the assignment desk would talk to each other or the reporters would work it out in the field where we would trade information that we could gather together. It's one thing if you go off and get your own interview and you wanted to make sure that was the nugget that you had for yourself. But if something's out there in the public domain, then that's really what we all shared. And that really was the beginning of the collaboration that I think we've been building on for the last 40 years. And
it was it was codified. I mean, we started a thing in Channel 10 at about 2010 when the economy tanked. Everybody wanted to save money. So they started this thing called LNS, Local News Service.
Yeah.
And we started it. And we shared our content, not our like reporter packages, and our independent reporting, but the ribbon cuttings, things like that. We would share that stuff with Channel 6 didn't participate, but it was us, Fox 29, and Channel 3 and Channel 17. We eventually left it because we decided we were losing our independence, and all the news was starting to look the same on all the channels, and we didn't want to.
That actually is.
Fox and Channel 3 still do it though. They share a helicopter.
They share a helicopter. Exactly right. Which again, it's that balance between saving money and also, you do want to make sure that you are unique in the way that you're delivering material. And I think that what you get out of a PBS NPR kind of setup is the fact that they do know how to cooperate. They do know how to collaborate. It is nothing to say that if somebody has a great piece of news, whether it be the News Journal or the state news, that you give them credit for it. They did the work on it. So why not? There's nothing that says you're a less of an organization. In fact, you should actually take pride in that. The fact that you are willing to go out and find another source of news that augments your own reporting. And I think that's been the key to
and if you think about how much things have changed, when I was in the newsroom in the 80s, there was an assignment editor in Philadelphia that we affectionately called Beelzebub, daughter of the devil. And we said this assignment editor would run over their own grandmother to get a story from somebody else. And that is no longer the case. I mean, you even see it that when CBS gets the interview with the Cuomo accuser, the other stations credit that, and they say in an interview with CBS, there's no more of this competition to get it fast, get it first. It's to get it right. And I think that as long as that stays the main theme, we're all good.
Yeah. Yeah, and look at it. The question Rebecca asked in the beginning was, what do we expect to see in 10 years? And if you go back 10 years, the key at WHYY was that we wanted to build an online news service called Newsworks. And the idea behind that was that people were going to go to a website and consume their news like they would with a newspaper. And it's like, that actually seems like an antiquated idea because nobody's going to a website anymore. You sort of say, hey, I want to know something about X. And then, I want to know something about Andrew Cuomo. And so you Google it, and then you get your menu of Andrew Cuomo stories, and somewhere in there, they could click your news or your news outlet to get that. So, it's, the business is changing. It's like, we're teaching radio people how to appreciate photography. We're teaching print people how to appreciate audio, so as we've kind of meshed our skill set, that actually is another part of collaboration.
Yeah, I'd say to all you interns out there, take that very seriously. Again, it goes back to the Swiss Army knife mentality. Some of my stories turn into radio packages for our partners at KYW Radio, which if you ever us, we'd be, locked in with KYW Radio, which used to be CBS. And I'd be like, get out of here. No way. But our weather people do live weather for them all day. It's very NBC 10ish on KYW Radio now. But the WDEL people here in Wilmington, they go shoot video, and some of them do it pretty well, some not as well. But again, the way as somebody that likes a paycheck, I would say to all of you, be good at everything. Get decent at photography, audio, know how to edit on Adobe Premiere. It's not expensive. You could buy it now for probably $10 a month, or $300 for the thing. Learn how to edit video, learn how to edit photos, learn how to take a good photo. Not just like a clip, stupid smartphone picture. If you're going to shoot video, even with your phone, do it right. Hold it sideways, please. For the love of God, don't hold it vertical. That's like the worst thing ever. I'm begging you. So, but you have to be that Swiss Army knife, because, that's how stories get told. I mean, they're literally they're texting me right now. Hey, you need to cut that. You need to cut the story you shot yesterday. Forget going to Smyrna. We have somebody gathering some information on climate change report out of Philly, but they want me to do it out of Delaware. I have to shoot my own stand-ups. I mean, today, they're bugging me already, but this is how it works. It's like, it's a team effort. It's compiling. It's getting something from somewhere. I'll have to go somewhere and do stand-ups at some point. So it's a hustle, and it has to be number one, has to be right. But it has to be good. It has to be well told. All these stories, you need people to watch. I mean, that's what pays the bills. It's not public television or public radio. We need people to watch it. My job is to get you interested in my story with a good, well-written anchor lead. And then the first video you see will hopefully be something good that lures you in to watch the story. It sounds creepy, but I tell my students, first of all, tell every story like you're telling your mom. Your mom's not going to want the very low details. She's going to want the big picture. Like, why are we doing this? Why is this important to me? That's what we do. And then as you go down the list, you sort of say, okay, I think of it, and this sounds creepy, but I think of it as luring you over to my TV story. And once I get you with the candy, that's when I give you the salad. You're going to get the nutrition after that. So I always think of it in terms of I need to have, and not every story has this video, but something sexy, the best video, clever writing, natural sound of whatever I'm covering. And then lure you in. Maybe it's a good soundbite from some person on the street that I had to do a story about how hot it was. We had a heat story a few weeks ago. This woman goes, "It is hot." She looked right into the camera. That was the first soundbite of an otherwise kind of boring story. That was she lured you in. She was the candy that gets you in. That I can give you the other stuff about fan giveaways and the boring stuff that we have to report. But it's not as sexy or fun to talk about. So that's the hustle. That's it's constantly how can I make this story better? What can I do to get the viewers more interested in this? And that's sort of and we have to work fast. I don't get 2 days to do a story. I get maybe 2 hours if I'm lucky, and write it and churn it out and make it good. and above all, make it right.
Very, very good. Hey, we're running about, well, it's about 16 minutes after 10. We got about 10 minutes or so to go. I think it might be a good time to open up a little bit for questions. If you've got a question, a comment, folks out here who are listening, raise your hand and let us know, and Rebecca will plug you in. I guess one of the points that Tim was making about making that story easy to understand reminds me of one of my own. And this goes back, I want to say probably 40 years, but my first editor at the News Journal, a guy named Fred Hartman, said that when you write a story, you want to make that story written so that somebody drops into Wilmington, just got off the spaceship from Mars, that they'll understand what that story is all about. And so anyhow, a couple of years into my work at the News Journal, my aunt, and I mentioned this because she's 102 today, drove was taking a train through from New York down to Washington. For some reason or other, there was a brief layover in Wilmington. She got off the train, picked up a copy of the News Journal, and there was a story that I had written and it was right there on the front page that day. And the crazy thing about it is that she still talks about it now. So yeah, make whatever you do, whatever you're writing, or whether it's audio, whether it's television, you've got to make that story understandable to the person who knows virtually nothing about it right now, before and when they pick up the paper, when they turn on the television, click on the link on the internet. Okay, any questions? Rebecca, do we see any questions out there?
We do not have any questions just yet, but it feels like it's really heartening to hear from all of our panelists that they feel so that journalism is still so critically important, and that there's a path forward. I mean, the industry, whatever kind of, as I said, format you're looking at, has its own challenges. And something that Nancy had said earlier about that news becomes more relevant once you have the house, have the family, have deeper roots in community. I think sometimes, and I'd love to get the panelists' read on that, like it is, I perceive it so difficult for young people to find a footing in the world. I mean, you have the millennial generation that's been unable to buy houses, that has kind of this prolonged, I mean, it's not like mental adolescence, but like economics are forcing delay of so many pieces. How do those societal aspects kind of impact people caring about the communities that they're in? If you're transient and keep moving around, you're not putting roots down. And do you care about what's happening in the community that you're only going to stay in for a year or so? And I just love to hear from panelists about, like, if they think that that's kind of feeding into some of the problems that we're seeing in journalism now. And actually, Brian's in the chat saying he'd also, while you guys are thinking, because I know that was a really big kind of topic, Brian is asking what journalism can and should do to engage readers who are young now, but will be taxpayers in 10 years. TikTok might not be around, but there's always going to be something else. So what do you do to engage people who are not going to like your local publication's homepage?
I think, Brian, that having younger people around in the newsroom, whether they're anchors or whether they're production assistants, working on a digital team, I think the best way to learn what young people are looking for is to have young people around you. I get a lot out of teaching college classes. I think Nancy would say the same. But here's the other thing, and I kind of agree with Nancy. I went to American University and I wanted to be a TV reporter. I liked it. In college, I didn't really watch much TV news because I didn't have a consistent schedule. We have spent years trying to chase this idea that we're going to be like, well, how can we get the 19 and 20 and 21-year-olds to watch? Because frankly, let's be honest, that's a desirable market of people with expendable income that advertisers would like. I mean, that's what a lot of it's about. And I can't get past this idea that And I'll tell anybody that will listen, you're not going to reach them. You didn't reach me, and that was before we had a lot of internet options. I had internet in college, but, we didn't have a lot of internet options. So, and there was no social media. So I don't know that it's possible. It's when I always think it's interesting. My former students, they start telling, they never say they watch me, but when they're 25 or 26 or 27, that's when they write me back like, hey, I saw you on TV today. I'm like, I'm on TV every day. Like, that's no big shock to me. But it's funny when they start watching is when they have a consistent job and schedule and they need a weather report, which is, by the way, you can swipe left on your iPhone and get a weather report.
Yeah.
But people still like watching the weather, like Hurricane Schwartz. They like, those are the stories that bond us all. Our ratings triple when it snows. Guys, I tell people, this is the joke I always make. At Channel 10, this is how important weather coverage is at Channel 10. If Jesus came into Brouhaha and said to me, hey, I'd like to sit down and do a one-on-one exclusive interview with you. Jesus, I'd be like, oh, that's awesome. If it starts flurrying outside, I'd be like, I'm sorry, Jesus, I have to split. I got to go. It's snowing now. And that's weather, winds, sports is up there. And pandemic is obviously kind of lodged itself in because it affects all of us too. But yeah, like, I don't know that I don't know that you can care too much about TikTok. I think you have to think about just doing a really good quality product, having a lot of voices, different kinds of voices, age, race, sexual orientation, everything, and just try to do your best to make a really good product. And hopefully people will want it, and you make it as convenient as possible to get it, but it's still got to be good journalism product.
So here's another thought to keep in mind, and that is that most news watchers are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And the key question is not how do you get the 20-year-olds to consume news, but how do you get the 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds 10 years from now to consume news? Because as everyone ages into that next demographic, their news habits are going to be solidified somewhere in their past. And so that's really where we need to start looking at how do we better connect with communities? How do we better reflect the audiences that we're trying to serve? And all of that is an evolution. And that's what we've been working on up until today and what we've got to keep working on for the future.
I think too, the pandemic teaches us something about how it's difficult to reach that generation. That's why they're highly unvaccinated. They're not I have members of my family, not my children, but members of my family who continued to go to bars during quarantine. And it just was not a relevant thing in their life other than they were working from home. And I think that just shows that, we're not going to reach them in the conventional ways. And I don't think that we should change the entire track on the train to try to reach them. But if the 40-year-olds understand, they are the co-workers, they are the family members, they're the ones like I was who could say, you got to stop going to the bar. So, it's as much as the trickle down, not to Reaganize anything, but the trickle down here of being able to keep information in the forefront and making sure that the population has access to it in a way that they can consume it.
Yeah,
Tim, as far as writing it clear, there is a former journalist at the very beginning of my career who would be very happy to tell you, one day I actually wrote in my script that a sanitation vehicle blocked the roadway, and he looked at me and said, you mean a trash truck?
Yeah, and that's funny you say that, Nancy, because I get emails all the time and Facebook messages. Old people tell me I speak too fast, which is probably true because I have a lot to say and I'm very enthusiastic. Sorry, not sorry, I guess, but I at least hear what you're saying. But I have people that have said to me, I try to speak like I speak off air. I try to be the exact same off air as I am on air. And I use words like dude. And again, there are some old people like that, or older people, or even traditional that they're like, I can't believe he just, said blinged out on TV. Look, I'm not going to use the word John every third word like some people would do in Philly. Within reason, I think it's okay to be conversational And the number one compliment I get when people come up to me at restaurants with my family is, you seem like such a normal guy. And that's a great compliment, because that's how I look at it. I'm your neighbor who gets to do really cool stuff and also see some not, some scary stuff or some whatever, but I'm your eyes and ears. Like, I'm like literally my neighbor, Amanda and Lon, they come to me and it's like a sitcom, and they'll be like, hey, that thing today that you covered, what was that? And I'll be like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I think I am the same on TV as I am off, to the point where it's conversational. I think it's okay to say trash truck, instead of sanitation vehicle. I think, I think there's a lot of things like that people, like, I can't stand. Like, I have a couple of friends that are like network reporters that I love them to death, but when they talk to you, like, conversation is great, and then they go on TV and they turn their shoulder, that's right, Bill. And it's like, well, why did you do that? I mean, I don't think that's what people want. I think people in this day and age, and part of it is an attention span thing, part of it is a YouTube thing. I think, especially like the 20, 30, and 40-year-olds, I think they're very comfortable with people talking like normal people. If I'm on TV and something big happened, I can say, like, I can sort of break that fourth wall with them and say, I'll tell you what, if you could be here right now and smell this thing, it reeks. Like, this is gross. And people appreciate that I'm their eyes and ears, in that case, nose, of them as you're my neighbor. I'm telling you what you like here, so you don't have to be here. I don't wish this smell on you. And it's okay to say that. I can say, hey, listen, that mask mandate went into effect yesterday. My wife's a teacher. She's not happy about it, man, because talking for 8 hours in a mask to students, that's brutal. And I see how it affects her. It's okay to have that. I'm not sacrificing my objectivity. I'm not getting the story wrong, but it's okay to be a human being. And they call it, consultants call it process journalism, which is a weird way of describing what I think I've done for years, which is just letting you in on the process. Like, so I called this guy today because all of our viewers are messaging me on Facebook, and they're complaining about this same business. So I called the business. He hung up on me. Like, that is okay to say. That's what happened when I called.
Right.
That. And a lot of reporters we had these reporters that would be like, I called Bill Smith on my cell phone today. I also called. So it's like, no. It's not a list of everything you did. It's just allowing the viewer to understand what I'm doing to get you the answers you need. This is the work that I'm putting in. I got my sneakers on today because I'm hustling for you. And that's okay to be conversational like that. There are older school people that don't like that. And I hear from them. Trust me, I hear from them.
I got called out for using the word kid by a WHYY board member instead of children. So every time I referred to children as kids, I got a call from Roxana, and she would call me out on it. And I'd be like, I understand, Roxana, but I've got kids too, and they're my kids.
I've never once had, I've been at Channel 10 for almost 16 years. I've never had one news director tell me you shouldn't talk like that. In fact, it's the opposite. Just know what you're doing, because the audience like it. People seem to react to you on TV. So a kid is a kid, I mean, and again, it's not
their kids.
It's not bad slang either. Like, yeah, I wouldn't be like, call a cop by a disrespectful name or a police officer. You have to be smart and respectful, but it's okay to be like, do you see that dude? Like this.
And I don't mind that stuff. I do mind some of the erosion of our principles. When I hear a news anchor say someone passed away, it just drives me crazy, because people die, and that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be written.
Right.
I hate adjectives. I hate adjectives in our business. I think adjectives are way overused.
Gone missing. Oh my God, where's missing? What do you mean they've gone missing? How does somebody go missing?
Yeah,
they are missing.
Interns, please just never say there's more questions than answers, because viewers don't. It's okay to say what you know and don't know, but you don't need to tell them more questions than answers. Victim speaks out, like that. That's a dumb phrase. It makes it sound like it's like during the Revolutionary War, where a guy stood up and said, hear you. Like, shots rang out. Like,
an undetermined amount of cash.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's so many like stupid like little things like that. And again, this goes back to my number one rule. And I have one of my students is the main anchor in Baltimore now, and he always tells me, he says the same thing when he's writing his scripts. What would my mom want to know? How would I tell it to my mom? And that's really, of course, in Weiner, one year it was bad. I said to a kid, I said, well, how would you tell it to your mom? And he goes, well, my mom died 5 years ago. That was awkward. But the point remains tell it like you're telling a good friend in a conversational way. And it's okay to sort of talk like a normal person, for God's sake. I have, really, like, I am astounded when I watch some reporters, even like younger reporters, like in their like late 20s, that think they need to talk like a reporter from back in the day. It's like, oh my God, like, take it easy, okay?
So a lot of it sounds like meeting people where they are, making
Yeah.
it accessible, making it relevant, and mirroring the language of the people that you're trying to attract.
I got your back. I'm your neighbor. I'm out trying to get a good story to tell you a good story. And I'm going to tell it to you the same way I would tell you if I'm standing next to you at my fence and we're having a beer, Wilmington Brew Works having a beer. That's to tell you the story. That's what we're supposed to be doing, I think. Yeah, as long as you get it right and fair and all viewpoints are represented and all the journalism stuff, absolutely 100%. But you can do it in sort of a conversational way, right?
Sure. I know John was trying to get in there, and then I feel like it's 10:32, so we got to close up shop.
I know I have a meeting at 10:30, but that's all right. It's just my supervisor. Anyway, I also want to emphasize one point that I know we haven't actually said it like this, but I think the part of the collaborative future that we're going to encourage everyone partake in is also the fact that we are finally openly saying we need more diversity in our business. And I think that in it of itself will help broaden the picture, allow people to survey points of view that we all try to do the facts, but I think sort of hearing it from people who look like us and look like them is also a better way to send that message as well. And I look forward to that. I think it's encouraging. And again, the fact that we're even saying it out loud is a key part of the future.
Great point to end on. And Larry, did you want to add something?
I was just going to say, hey, thank you very much. This has been a fascinating, stimulating discussion. I appreciate the prep and the knowledge that all three of our panelists have put into it. I think, and I hope that the interns and the rest of the audience have gotten quite a bit out of it. Thank you all very much, and this is a great way to wrap up our summer programming. Rebecca, I leave it to you to sign off. But thank you, everyone.
Thanks again to our panelists and also to our participants. I will remind you that all of our Into the Newsroom sessions have been recorded as we've done this and are available on MDDC's YouTube channel. So we're pretty much on all social media, YouTube and whatnot, as MDDC Press. I invite you to follow us there. We also have our weekly newsletter, the Weekly Planner, that comes out usually on Fridays, which is a clearinghouse of information for people interested in journalism in the region. And I look forward to reading and listening and seeing all the great work that each of you are going to be doing in the future. So thanks so much and enjoy your day.
Thank you.